First of all, thank you so much for taking time to join us. I know you're really busy right now going around and promoting the film. But let's start with this. For those who don't know about it yet, tell us about Fordson, Faith, Fasting, and Football.
Well, it's a documentary film that's really about the American dream. But it happens to be a story about a community that many people don't know much about, and that's the Arab American community living in Dearborn, Michigan. So we tell the story of a community through the eyes of the high school football team, 4 players, the coach, and the principal, and we follow them for a week during the last 10 days of Ramadan when the kids are fasting from sunrise to sunset. They cannot eat, they cannot drink, and we tell a story of a rivalry game. Through that rivalry game, we talk about the history of Arabs being there and the challenges that this community's faced, from fasting while playing football to racism on the football field to the unique effect that September 11th attacks in our country had on this community. Kind of all wrapped up in the hopes and aspirations of these people and how they, like many other immigrants, have come here for religious freedom, come here to make a better life for themselves, and come here to educate their kids.
You know, Rashid, one of the things that I love about documentaries is that the filmmakers usually have a passion point, something that really connects them to the human story being told. What was it about the story of this football team, this high school, and this community that made you go, this is a story that I think people need to hear?
Yeah, the story was unique in that, I happen to be a South Asian Muslim, and I felt there was a real disconnect with the American public in terms of their perception of what Muslims and Islam were about, especially here in the United States, what the reality was. And when I first heard about this story back in 2004, I was so inspired and impressed that these kids would play the all-American sport of football, adopt it as their own, have it be part of their tradition of their families and their community, and yet they practice their religion. And I thought that story on its own was really inspiring to me, and I wanted to share it. But I also thought that football would serve as a great vehicle to deal with a lot of political and social issues that I thought had to be addressed. So that was really the inspiration for the film. When I went and first did my first scouting visit in 2004, there was a linebacker I interviewed named Osama, and as he was talking to me, he said, why would you want to make a film like this? Nobody wants to hear our story. Nobody would even care about us. And that really kind of propelled me to work on getting the rights over the next 4 or 5 years to tell this story, because I thought if we could share this concept, or actually share the content with the American public, people would gravitate towards it, because it's an inspiring story. It's one that people haven't heard.
One of the most interesting things for me, one of the most interesting moments in the film is something that was going through my head, is that with such a strong Arab community, your natural assumption would be soccer, and you talk about that in the film. What do you think it is about this community, this high school, this group of people, that still made football the #1 sport that the best and most athletic kids wanted to be a part of, as opposed to, say, something like soccer?
Well, it's interesting, because you would think that a lot of the Arab immigrants would gravitate towards soccer, but I think the whole point of them playing football and gravitating towards football kind of shows how they're American like everybody else. In every high school across the country, you may get 300 people at a soccer game, and you get 5,000 or 4,000 or 10,000 people at a football game, because football is really part of the American culture. So I think when you immigrate here and when you come here, you end up playing the sport that, is the most popular, and you end up playing the sport that's the most exciting. You end up playing the sport that the other kids play. And for the recent immigrants, it's football, but then for the kids who've been here for a generation or two, their dads played football. So the quarterback, Ali Beydoun, his dad wore number 32. He wore number 32. His dad played quarterback and taught his son how to play quarterback. So once the older generations came here and started to play that sport, it was obvious for their kids to adopt that same sport. And that's kind of one of the themes of our movie, is that they may go to a mosque to pray to God instead of a church. They may dress a little bit differently. Their favorite foods might be more ethnic than others. But the fact is that they play this all-American sport, and they've really adopted it as their own. And I think I told the coach I wouldn't have done this movie without football, and we wouldn't have made the movie unless you guys were really passionate about the sport. And I think that comes across within the context of the film.
Now, Fordson Faith Fasting Football is a part of the AMC Independent Program, which is AMC's program to help highlight and celebrate independent film. What does it mean for a filmmaker like yourself to have your movie a part of AMCI?
Well, I've told this to a number of media outlets that without AMC Independent and Nicole and Shelley and Gene and the support we've gotten, we would not have the visibility or the publicity or the vehicle this mass distributed. If we didn't have AMC, our film, like many other independent films, would be playing in community centers on smaller screens, and much more on a grassroots level. What AMC has done for us is put us in the cineplexes alongside with major Hollywood blockbuster attractions. So, A, it's given us credibility. B, it's given us distribution that we didn't have. And C, it's provided us with a unique opportunity to let audiences really engage in the film.
Listen, Rashid, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. This is a very compelling documentary. We're very excited to have it as a part of AMCI, and we can't wait to have it on AMC screens.